with IBHS research scientist Chris Sanders. Chris, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no
We're
problem.
at the our aging farm site out here, which is a great natural laboratory to study roofs and how they perform. So tell us what we're looking at here. This looks like just sort of a conventional architectural asphalt shingle.
Yeah, so you're 100% right there. It is a pretty typical asphalt shingle. It is of the architectural variety. You can tell because you've got both the single and double layers on here. And it's both aesthetically appealing, or that's kind of the idea behind it, as opposed to the older school 3-tab shingles. And this is actually a new product for our farm out here, one that we've never actually put on there before. So this is actually a Pabco brand product.
So this type of shingle, though, a typical architectural shingle, this is pretty much now what's going on most homes across the U.S., right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's over like 3/4 of the roofs in America, something like that.
So one of the things we can do out here is look at how these roofs respond to like the everyday weather, right? You know, today it's kind of cloudy, overcast with a little bit of sprinkles. But, you know, give us just a feel, you know, what these roofs, what do they experience, you know, day to day?
Yeah. So kind of what you mentioned there, really, this is our kind of real world experimental laboratory. And so what we have out here are all these huts that we built to just go through the natural weathering cycle. You know, there's some artificial weathering things that you can do, but there's some uncertainty there and whether or not they really match the real world. And so the whole purpose of this is to just let these guys sit out here and enjoy the change of seasons, the highs, the lows, the rain coming down. And you know, we've instrumented them with some thermocouples and things like that, so that we can also get a sense of what they experience as a material. And so one of the things that was really neat that we found from that was kind of the change in temperature that they can experience in the summertime. And I believe you'll see a little demonstration of that later on.
Yeah, you know, these can be big swings, right? You know,
Yeah.
40, 50 degrees just from, you know, things like rain. You know, Brenna's going to take us through that. But even just passing clouds, right? That affects the temperature on these guys.
Right. I mean, if you're thinking about the middle of the summer, the middle of August, it's really hot outside. You're getting a lot of sun exposure from the longer days in there. And then, you know, during the middle of the day, once it's nice and heated up, if a cloud comes between the sun and that roof, it's going to cast a shadow over there and it's going to change the temperatures.
So let's talk temperature. And, you know, what is the effect of temperature on the thing that really holds these laps together, the sealant? If you've been around us at IBHS, you've probably heard us talk about how that sealant changes underneath here. What is it, and what is it doing?
Yeah, so it's really just an adhesive that actually goes down. The way that these shingles are held on is there's an upper piece here that is nailed on, and then the next shingle is going to come down, lap over it, and that sealant is going to be what actually kind of attaches those two pieces of shingle together. And if they come up, then water is potentially going to come through your roof.
So you definitely could see if you peel up one of these tabs, you know, if wind's blowing up the slope like this, it's going to pull up on that tab even more, right?
Yeah. And you know, this one is a newer one. Like I said, this hadn't even been out here for a year, so all of these are fairly well sealed on here, which is nice. But if they were to come unsealed, and we'll look at one of those here in just a minute, it can become like a sail in the wind. You know, it kind of peels up, and then that wind, like you said, is rushing up the slope, and it's just going to start to pull the rest of that tab back.
Yeah, I was going to say, this one feels pretty well sealed if we just kind of pull on some of the edges here. Is that something that's common on a newer shingle?
You would hope so, yes. That is kind of the idea, is that the sealant is actually heat activated. And so realistically, what you want to do is, if you're putting on an asphalt shingle roof, you want to do it during the summertime so that heat has time to really activate in there and actually seal all of those.
Yeah, so you're really about getting the most sunlight that you can onto your roof to get that sealant activated. So what happens to that sealant as these things age?
That's a really good question, and that's kind of one of the things that we're really looking at observing here in testing.